The idea of an adventure is a mindset, and anything can be an adventure. So even a walk around the neighborhood could be an adventure.
Welcome to the Pet Care Report podcast by Pet Summits. Here's your dog training host, Melissa Viera.
Hello and welcome to the Pet Care Report, dog training interviews. I'm your host, Melissa. Thanks so much for joining me as we explore leading tips from dog training experts. I'm super excited today because we have a certified dog trainer and outdoor enthusiast who is going to tell us a little bit about what we need to know before we get out with our dogs on the trail. So if you're excited to go hiking with your dog, give this episode a listen first and we'll find out just what we need to know. Thanks so much for being here, Tadhg from Outhounds Adventure Academy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I said you're a certified dog trainer, but what I also wanted to mention, equally as important, is you're also a leave no trace instructor. So can you tell us a little bit about what exactly that means and why that's important for anyone who wants to get out with their dogs to really be conscious of the environment?
Oh, absolutely. So Leave No Trace is a multinational organization. They've been around for 30, 40 years or so, and they're the industry leader in how to enjoy the environment, enjoy the outdoors and the experiences, but do so in a way that is also environmentally friendly, and hence the moniker of Leave No Trace. There are 7 basic principles with Leave No Trace, including plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts, respect wildlife, be considerate of other visitors. And so to be an instructor, I had to do the Leave No Trace instructors do a certification course that kind of gives us a little bit of ideas and frameworks in how to lead instructions and lead instructor courses. There's other tiers as well, basic tier.
So I think it's a little bit more than just remembering to pick up after your dog. There are some more things we should know about before we go out there on the trail. So what are the top tips if this is somebody that's just starting out, they've never really been out hiking with their dogs? What should they know before they go out there?
Well, honestly, that first one is the most important. Plan ahead and prepare. Make sure you have everything that you need, everything your dog is going to need, whether it's poop bags or plenty of fresh water. We can talk later about how dogs expel their heat or not expel their heat. First, plan ahead is what's going to have you leave the least environmental impact possible. And I know that a lot of local land trusts, especially in our area, but even beyond with COVID, everybody became an outdoor enthusiast, which was wonderful. There wasn't really anything else to do. But then we fell in love again with the outdoors. But now we have to be mindful and respectful of we're not out there alone.
Right.
And I think with our dogs, the big thing is for me, we do everything when we do outdoor adventures, we do everything on leash. There is a time and place for off-leash dogs, but most of the things that we do are on leash because a lot of what we're going into are sensitive habitats and we want to be respectful of the people on the trail.
That makes a lot of sense. And it also, for other people, I know for me personally, if I'm out with my dogs and I see an off-leash dog, I don't know that dog. You know, you see a dog in a distance. So it's also making other people more comfortable too, which I think is just a respectful thing to do when we're all sharing the environment and the trails.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. I think our company, Outhounds Adventure Training Academy, we're a mission-focused company. You know, our first goal is to be the physical, mental health of dogs and their people, but also be good stewards of the environment and be responsible dog parents. And being a responsible dog parent is recognizing that not everybody there is going to love your dog as much as you love your dog.
Right. I like that you also said your mission is not just the health and wellness of dogs, but of people too. So that's a really neat thing because dog trainers are not just training dogs. We're working with people. So I think it's really important that you have that empathy and that care for the well-being of your human clients as well. So what is it about trails that just makes us feel great? I mean, we all know you go out on a trail and you feel wonderful afterwards, but what is it about trails? What can you tell us? Or just hiking? Like, why is that so beneficial?
I mean, I don't have the data behind me, but I think that, just being out in the fresh air, just being in sunlight, being in nature, really kind of connecting to our roots. It's just a time and place to maybe be more quiet, be more within yourself, and then getting to enjoy that with your dog. You know, anybody that has a dog, their joy is infectious when they're smelling every leaf. And when a dog comes off a trail and they're tired, it's not because you walked a long way. They could walk for forever, but it's all the sensory information they're getting, and they're Like they know every little bug and dirt and like smell 6 feet down, and they catch things off the breeze. And it's just so engaging for them. And it's wonderful.
And do you see a benefit for, I did notice you have a designated group for this. So dogs that might be a little bit reactive, or they just might struggle a little bit in like a class environment or in an urban environment, but they get out on that trail. And what does that do for those dogs?
Oh, absolutely. I think, especially with the reactive dogs, we don't want to flood them, and an industry term, we don't want to just throw them in completely over their head. Outhounds, where we kind of base our stuff off of like outward bound. And part of outward bound is taking an acceptable risk. You kind of assess like what is actually safe. You're challenging yourself, you challenge your dog to go beyond the comfort zone, but you're not completely flooding them to the point of shutting down. But I think what the outdoors allows to happen, and we're moving together in a group, it takes that social pressure off. A lot of dogs are not dog park dogs or daycare dogs, but they are perfectly fine. And another reason we keep everything on leash when we do our adventure club is because we want to give everybody a chance. We don't want every dog to get bombarded by 10 other dogs in their face. But if we're all moving in the same group, we can create space that slowly begin to decrease the distance. And oftentimes, if the dog enjoys being outside and enjoys the environment, they often come away over time just so much more relaxed with the group that they're with.
Yeah. How often do you think dogs should be out there doing something other than just a walk around the neighborhood? So many people walk their dogs every day, but even just like going to the woods in your backyard, it doesn't have to be hiking up a mountain, but just out there in the woods or visiting a lake or just something other than a pavement walk. What is the optimal?
I don't know if there's an optimal amount. I think as often as you can, but I wouldn't want to put a benchmark to it. One of our mottos is that adventure club is for everybody. In my thought, the idea of an adventure is a mindset. And anything can be an adventure. So even a walk around the neighborhood could be an adventure, but maybe you go a different way. Maybe you go down a street you never went down before. Maybe you take a moment to smell something. Maybe you leave some treats and things, or you practice getting up on a rock, or there's like a little like obstacle that you could try, or there's a tree that you could like do a dog on the log with a tree that's side the road. And like you can make an adventure out of everything. You just have to see it with an adventurous spirit. Walking with kids is actually a lot of fun. We're family friendly when we do our adventure club, and seeing kids like and how
that's great.
World. And you're like, oh yes, I remember what this is like.
Yeah.
Everything.
Stop to notice everything and notice, the plants and the mushrooms and the bugs, and kids are really good at that.
They are.
Dogs are as well, but
our dogs are too. And we tend to get rushed in, or we get stuck in our phone, and we get stuck in what happened. Sure. Dogs are so zen. They are so in the moment. They don't worry about too much that happened 3 seconds ago, and they're not really that worried about what's happening 3 seconds from now. They're very much in the moment and taking things in. And so if we can, take a lesson from them.
Now, your business is in Massachusetts. I am as well. So we know that we have all kinds of weather here, and not everybody has such a range of weather. Yep. But the great thing is you can share tips for just about every season. You know what it's like to hike in the winter, and I'm sure you have some type of plan for those hot days when you can't hike. So what are your tips first off, for somebody that might want to get out with their dog? How can they judge to see if the environment or the weather that day is safe for their dog? And then how can they make sure their dog is the most comfortable?
Sure. I think the heat more often is more of a problem for our dogs. Now, for those that might not know, our dogs really expel heat a couple of ways. They don't have sweat glands the way that we do. That sweat doesn't evaporate off their body and cool them off the way it does for humans. They expel heat through their paw pads. They expel heat through panting, through their ears. And so that's about it. And so they can get overheated very quickly. So you have to be mindful. So we always do our adventures in the morning. And when we do our adventure club on the weekends, when we do our pack hikes, for example, during the week, when we grab groups of dogs, we try and reserve those for the morning times if it's too hot, and it's, variable by the dog. But really, once you even get to 75, 80 degrees, you're starting to tick up, and you have to take frequent breaks, frequent water breaks, give them a chance to slow down. And you really want to be careful to not push it. For a colder weather, again, it depends on the dog and the dog breeds. Certainly different breeds have different acclimations to the colder weather. And so seeing coats actually do have a place for certain dogs and certain dogs that do need it. But, a lot of our larger dogs, fluffier dogs, they're pretty comfortable. I will note too, and I know your background as well in grooming, but you don't want to shave your fluffy dogs down because that regulate their body.
That's a really important topic. We could do a whole nother episode on
Right.
this.
Yeah. So you're doing your dog a good service. Oh, I want to cool them off and shave them down. But in fact, that fluffy coat, that insulated coat actually helps keep them cool. It can be tough for dogs that swim, if you have like a water dog that's working fishing lines or something. But for the most part, your dogs are fine with in that longer coat, and it keeps them a little bit cooler. Like I said, keep them cool, try and keep near a water source if you're able to. We let them walk through the mud.
Yeah, it's an adventure. You should get muddy. And I like what you said about an adventure doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and hike. You can do this in your neighborhood or even in your backyard. It's just that variety and that mindset. So when it is too hot out, like, hey, turn your living room into an adventure. Absolutely. Be creative,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Now, do you have, I know we talked a little bit about prep and what to bring. So the obvious ones were the poop bags in the water. Yeah. Are there any like strange items that you're out there and you thought to yourself, wow, I really wish I would have brought that?
So my backpack will have, like I said, I bring lots of jugs of water because you're going to go through a lot more of it for your dog than even for yourself. I usually use a collapsible water bowl. By a collapsible water bowl, I bring treats because we're depository person, don't know who you're going to run into. Extra things like extra carabiners, an extra leash, an extra harness, just in case things break. Again, I'm planning and preparing. I bring citronella spray. You don't know what you're going to encounter out there. Although now in Massachusetts, we are getting more bear. So if you are hiking in other places in bear country, you want to make sure you plan in that regard as well. And so, those are things that we certainly keep in mind when we're out there. And then first aid kit for both you and your dog. Wound wash and like an antiseptic and that kind of thing.
Do you notice that the dogs need anything for their paw pads? Do you have any recommendations for that? Or do most of them just kind of acclimate?
That's a great question. And I'm not prepared to answer that thoroughly. They do make booties and different kinds. I think it's like wax type material for paws, particularly if you're going like in, snowy areas or snow crust areas, like a lot of sled dog teams will use these kinds of things. The booties are great too on hot surfaces. If you happen to be on pavement, the basic rule of thumb as far as testing the pavement is holding your back of your hand to the pavement for about 5 seconds. If you can do it, it should be fine for your dog to walk on. If you can't, it's too hot and it's going to burn their paws. But same thing too in the winter. Like if you're in a neighborhood and you have salt on the ground to, snow melt, paw booties there are also really helpful to protect, from the chemicals that are in the salt. But when we're out in the woods, we haven't run into it too much to look for the paw protection. But depending on the environment that you're in, whether it's desert or snow or whatever, be mindful of that. But that's a great question. I think that's something that other folks can explore.
Yeah. And I guess it's very environmental dependent also. So it might be very different in different areas as well. Now, what about sports as far as related to what you do? So running with dogs through the woods. I just picture this being so much fun, but every time I try it, it's not fun for me.
Well, I'm a big fan of a waist belt with your dog. So that's great. So you can go. Yeah. There are a number of cool outdoor sports for your dogs. I do take my dogs running, not with my clients. Although maybe that's a different venue. I think we can explore later. We haven't gotten that adventurous. We've gone on long, 8-mile, 10-mile hikes, but we haven't gone on the full run yet.
8 to 10 miles. That's quite the hike.
Not always. That's our very adventurous. Very adventurous folks. Most of our stuff is around. But we've been doing water sports like stand-up paddleboarding. And then in the fall, we're going to be looking at the joring. I know there's different joring sports like joring, and the joring, it just means your dog is pulling you. So whether it's joring when you're running behind your dog or joring on a bike or joring on skis, which I don't ski. So you'll be taking my broken leg back to the end of that. But that's, again, different sport for different seasons. But like you said, you have to be mindful. Again, water sports is really popular right now because it's hot and we want to keep our dogs cool.
The paddleboarding sounds really fun. I bet people and dogs love that.
My dog does not like it all that much.
Oh, but they have to pick their own sports and their own activities. Every dog is different.
She does, but we are working on it and she has made great progress. And that's, again, pushing her a little bit outside of her comfort zone, but not flooding her. And when she wants to check out, we check out. When she's had enough, That's it. But we're working our classic counter conditioning methods and associating the scary thing with food. And I always joke that, I have an emotional math. So if scary things equal treats and then treats equal feeling good, then scary things are going to equal feeling good. So that's what we're working on. It's slow, but she's getting it. But that's where your foundational stuff really comes into play. And I know the work that you do, Melissa, with any of the trick things or any of the,
the tricks and the climbing on things.
All the obstacle course stuff, right? Building that proprioception, that those tiny muscles that help your dog feel like they're balanced and handle it. All of that is really great and all the foundational work. So it's like, I'm a musician. So you have to learn your scales before you can play a song.
Makes a lot of sense. And you had mentioned if your dog or any dog starts to check out, you will, of course, end that session for them. So as dog trainers, we are very used to looking for what that means. Like we know what it looks like even before a dog has reached that level of like, I'm done. We're a step ahead of them. So what can you say to pet owners who might want to try teaching their dog, like dog on a log, as you called it, or climbing up on a rock or any of those things that you mentioned? They want to start trying that, but they're not sure if their dog is actually having a good time. So what kinds of things can they look for?
Sure. So you want to make sure they're not checking out. They're not avoiding you. Avoidance is a big one. Pulling away. We don't want to drag our dogs over to something. We build up slowly with building association, just looking at like the log, for example. If I want to get my dog on a log, just checking it out, nosing it, smelling it, or maybe if they put one paw on it. And then when they do the thing that you really, when they really like, maybe they get two paws on it and I jackpot them. Jackpotting is a very underutilized method in dog training, but it is very utilized when you're working with like animal trainers like that are training other animals besides dogs. But we do a lot of shaping, and that's a special term there. But if you're doing it away, you shouldn't see them really checking out too much. We should see them kind of engaging because you're leading little breadcrumbs to where you want them to go. But yeah, when they've checked out, they might start looking away from you and you think they're being disobedient, but they're really shutting down.
Yeah, they're communicating.
Yeah. And they're saying, I'm not happy with this experience right now. And that's their very subtle way of indicating that. And then sometimes you can take a break. A lot of times you do it in short little bits. And then you stop and then you try it again a little bit later and then you stop. It's just this constant like ebb and flow in practice and making a game out of it. Like a lot of times, like you might do a short little session and then you might let them like run around with a ball or play a game or whatever. And that use of that body and movement helps solidify the training that you just did.
Yes, I agree with that. Training is mostly play, right? Like a little bit of training, a lot of play. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And then so that's building up different behaviors and things they might not be acclimated to. But what about the fitness part? Like, what about if I want to take my dog on my dogs are pretty fit right now, but if somebody wants to go on that 8-mile hike with you, what should they do to prepare for that? So they're not just going to take their dog who's a couch potato out on the trail for
right. Yeah. You just got to do it a little bit at a time, build up your fitness and build up their fitness with you. Yeah. Just like anything else, you want to avoid injury. You don't want to overdo it. And so I just get out a little bit at a time and slowly build that up. They're pretty remarkable, but you do want to be careful. And again, we're not doing 8-mile runs. These are, they're slow going.
Relaxed hikes.
Right. But again, you want to know your dog, know yourself, and see if that's something that they would actually really enjoy. Not every dog is going to enjoy that. Right. And that's why we offer an array. Like we do stuff that's in the neighborhoods, we near a city. So we do stuff right in the city, and then we'll do things like out on a state parks farther out. So we try and catch all the things because everybody's got to have a different level of what they find adventurous and what's going to be pleasing for their dog.
Well, this is great. I want to go hiking right now, but it's about to thunder out there. So it's probably...
Well, that's another thing. Always be respectful. Respect the weather.
Yes.
Respect nature and respect the weather. And we do not play around with thunder and lightning.
Yeah. A few fun questions for you.
Sure.
Phones on the trail. Yes or no?
What's that? Phones?
Phone usage on the trail. Yes or no?
Oh, again, if you're out in other things to keep in your backpack too, and good skills to learn, or compass and a map, because you're not always going to have great cell coverage. There are different electronics that can be very helpful if you're going far out, like Garmin's and real GPSs. A lot of times we do use lose cell coverage in some of the places that we go. But if you're out there talking, you do want to be mindful and aware. And part of it too is like, you don't want to really be that guy blasting his music for everybody in the woods to hear.
Do people do that? Is that a thing? People walk and they just kind of have their music blasting.
Beach people do that too. You get that a lot at the beach. Yeah, everybody blaring the music for everybody to hear. But it's not just for, again, being respectful and considerate of other people, right? That's one of the principles. Again, we're out there and we're borrowing this space. We're not just borrowing the space and sharing it with other people. That's what I love about our adventure club, your classes too. You really build community, and there's not a lot of places now that we build like person to person, face to face community and communication. And so we're out there. You think you're alone, but you're not alone. Like there are other people trying to be enjoying it just like you are. And then all that being said, we're just visitors. We're visiting this environment. Your dog is just a visitor in this natural habitat. They don't live there. They're not eating the animals that are there or living in that space. So we want to be mindful and considerate of that as well.
For sure. And being present in that and just.
So I am very much a culprit of snapping pictures and everything else. Although
it's hard not to, though. I mean,
it is hard not to. And,
somebody's got to do it so that your clients can enjoy being present.
Right? They go on. They don't have to worry about it. I'm taking the pictures. I'm leading the way. And
there you go. Now, do you have any fun or silly stories anything that comes to mind that you want to share? Just something fun that has happened on the trail while hiking.
Okay. Well, one of our first adventures, we started Adventure Club originally 5 years ago before COVID. And then we took a hiatus and we back. But one of our very first adventures, we're gathering in the trailhead. And all of a sudden, a large bull comes walking down the street.
A bull?
A full-size bull had escaped his enclosure from some farm up the road a ways. And then was made very threatening gestures that we all jumped behind a gate and we're like, So that was definitely probably one of our more adventurous adventures.
That's a good one because it's very unexpected. Like you're looking for wild animals and then here's just this bull walking.
Yeah.
That's great.
And very charged by all the dogs. Yeah.
Well, that's a memory and an experience for sure. I'm glad that there was a gate nearby to get behind. Is there anything else that you want to add? Anything that we didn't cover? What should our listeners know before they go out there? I think you did a really great job at covering a lot of how to prepare and feeling ready. I certainly feel ready to get out on the trail. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, no. Like I said, I think just being respectful of other people, respectful of other people's dogs. Not every dog is friendly. I think the big issue out there in the trails right now is that a lot of folks really want to have that experience of letting the dog run wild and free off leash. And you have to ask yourself, can I put $1,000 on the table and my dog is going to come when I call him? And if not, don't do it. They haven't earned that opportunity yet. And even if you do have them off leash, you have to make sure that, is this a place that allows off leash dogs?
Right.
See my dog at all times. Do I know what they're doing? Right.
Yeah.
Is this trail tight? Is it a tight space? Do I have, full field of vision? There's a lot of, check marks you want to go through before you go ahead and unclip that leash. And then there's always talk about like poop, leave it, pick it up. What's more environmental? And for the most part, if you use a compostable poop bag and you're able to dispose of it in the proper receptacle, that is probably the best case scenario because your dog poop does carry a lot of disease and you want to be careful about, having that get into water sources, everything else. If you need to dig a cat hole, you can and bury it. That might be, second best option, but pretty much carry in, carry out. They are not compostable in the sense that you should bag them up and just leave them. So that's not a thing as anybody should do.
They are not trail markers.
They are not trail markers. And I think just, be safe, plan ahead, know where you're going, leave plenty of time, between sunset. And if you need any help, reach out to me or anybody else or your local dog trainer or park guides.
So where can we find you, whether or not people are local? I think you have some distance services as well, I believe, right? Where is the best place to find you?
So our website is www.howsadventureacademy.com or Facebook or Instagram at How's Adventure and Training Academy. We're pretty vibrant on those platforms. And on there, you can text or email us. We're out there for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And thanks for our listeners for being here with us. We hope you're very excited to go out and have some fun with your dog. If you have questions about doing that, you can contact Tadhg, Adventure Tadhg.
How's Adventure and Training Academy.
And that's .com, or again, on any of those social platforms, you're very active as well. If you'd like to subscribe to this show, we have a lot of episodes coming up. We're really excited about some of the upcoming episodes. So feel free to subscribe so you don't miss those at petsummits.com and just hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for being here. We're going to wrap it up again. Thanks again, Tadhg, for being here.
Thank you, Melissa.
Bye.